Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday.
Hey. Sorry, we just got here.
Yeah, we just got here. Welcome to another episode of Last Thursday. And this week is actually the last Thursday of the month.
It's true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is kind of exciting because, this show, the original idea for this show was going to be a Patreon exclusive. And I was going to do a live stream every Thursday for just my patrons. And Mario and I did that, actually. We did a joint last Thursday show for my patrons a month ago now. It was about a month ago, I think. And, after we did that show, we both kind of were like, you know what? We should just turn this into our show.
Just open it up.
Open it up, because we had been talking about doing a show together for a long time. And so after we did it, we felt like, there's too much information that we actually want to share with everybody. And so anyway, here we are. Now it is last Thursday, every Thursday, and we're happy to be here and happy to see people in the chat showing up. I'm sure people will slowly trickle in.
Yeah, indeed they will. And we were kind of thinking of doing something special for the legitimate last Thursday of every month.
Yes.
But we haven't thought of anything yet. So something will come to mind, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll think of something good. And who knows, maybe every last Thursday we could do, that'll be when we have a guest or something. Or,
yeah.
That could be a place to start.
I think that's a good idea, actually.
So that might be a good place to start, actually.
Totally.
Yeah, so.
How's it going, Hank?
Howdy,
nice to
Hank.
see you, man.
Happy Thursday.
Yes. Braden, so nice of y'all to scatter these wonderful shows on different days. Makes each evening quite enjoyable. Cheers, y'all. Nice.
Oh, thanks, Braden.
Glad you could be here.
Yeah, appreciate it.
What's up, Jake? Nice to see you, man. Happy Thursday.
Howdy.
Happy Thursday. So Jake and I have started a collaboration. It was his idea. He prompted everything. Well, I don't know if I should give away too much. It's not that big of a deal, but we're working on some videos together.
Yeah.
Long story short.
Yeah.
So it's cool. We've met up a couple of times online to talk about it. And I think it's going to be good, man. And I'll read your script as soon as I'm able. You got on that real quick, but I think that's cool. So hell yeah. And then Michelle is here. Michelle Mullen.
Hi, Michelle. How you doing?
And
I just transplanted some. Well, you're Mullen. I transplanted mullen yesterday. Transplanted it from the garden beds to outside the garden. So
nice.
And every time I see your name, I think of mullen. I think of the mullen plant. So
makes sense.
Had to say it.
Alice is here. Hello, Alice.
Hi,
nice
Alice.
to see you. Thayer is here. Hello, Thayer.
What's up, Thayer?
And Liam is here. Greetings right back at you. So
howdy, y'all. What's up, Slick? I see you popping in.
Slick is here. So we mentioned it last time, and Slick made good use out of it. We have a link in the description, and it's for our Telegram chat. And so if you guys have a voicemail that you want to record, we'll play it on air. Conversely, I have my phone number in the description as well. So you can call that number and leave a voicemail.
Yeah.
Say if you don't have Telegram or whatever.
Oh, and did we want to use my phone?
Yeah.
For sound?
Probably.
Okay, I can go get my phone.
Yeah, whenever.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe just before we do stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
we can do that. I totally forgot until just now.
Totally. It's all good. Okay, so Michelle's saying, thank you for that. 4 foot plus and still snowing, no garden soon. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of snow.
Yeah, that is a lot of snow. Yeah, I know. Not everybody's out of the clear or just yet. We even aren't. I mean, I'm still fully aware that we could get some sort of cold snap pretty quick. But yeah, for now, it's just rain. So
Right.
But we've had really mild weather today and yesterday. So it's been really good.
Totally.
Been able to spend a lot of time in the garden, which has been super nice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so what are we drinking today?
Oh, today we are drinking chai. And couple of the reasons why this chai is special is that Mario went to India years ago. What, like 5, 6 years ago now, maybe?
It may have even been a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a long time ago. And one of the things that Mario brought home was chai spice. And it's literally just powdered spice that they use in India to make chai. And it makes the best chai that I've ever had.
It's really good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And to know that he brought it home over 6 years ago and it's still good. I've kept it in a jar. It's sealed off really well.
Right.
We don't use it all the time. It's kind of like a more of a special occasion chai. But I also added chaga to this one. So it's extra special.
You didn't ask me if you could do that. Just kidding. That sounds good.
Cheers.
Nice. Cheers.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah. Honestly, no joke. This truly is clearly because it came from India, but this is the closest thing to Indian chai that you can get.
I believe
here,
it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it has a different taste to it, like, and not in a bad way. It has just a more like a richer flavor or something, I would say.
Yeah.
And then when you add the chaga, it gives it more of like a smoky, earthy type flavor. So
right.
It's really nice.
Hell yeah. And what's on your mug there? How did you acquire that mug again? I can't remember. You remember though.
Oh, I remember. So this mug, I don't know if people can see it, if you can see it or not, but it's kind of like a comic strip, and it says on there, "Relax. There's a woman on the job." And so years ago, I took 2 classes at a community college in Portland, and the cafeteria had a leave a mug, take a mug program. And so I would go to the cafeteria and get a coffee before class, and I would grab a mug, and I'll say I never left a mug, but I took a couple mugs.
Dun dun dun. The truth comes out.
Oh my God. And it's like I was never one to like steal and stuff like that, but here I was, I was like, oh, they're never gonna miss this mug, and I never left a mug. But I do have 2 that I was so fond of when I saw them at the cafe that I ended up taking them home with me.
Let's see if we can show the artwork, because I think it's pretty good. I can hold
you should
it.
do it. It's hot, so be
Yeah. So can you guys see that there? Hopefully,
kinda blurry.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to adjust so that. So up top,
sort of.
not so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It says, there it goes.
There it is.
It says, relax. There's a woman on the job! ! And so it's like an office building, it's an office room, office space, and just one lady. All of the other employees are men, and they're all in black and white, and it's the lady's the only one that's in color,
and she's the only one, quote unquote, working, I guess.
And you've been strategic when you make me teas and stuff for shows to not give me that mug. It's more of a joke. I mean,
it is more of a joke, and I am totally not like I remember taking this too when I was more in my like more feminist-ish days of thinking that, we're women, we can have office jobs and do all this stuff, which we can, but that's just not where I'm at anymore. But it's funny because that's what this mug basically kind of is saying. But I also think that when a woman is in her role, when she's like comfortable in her space and she is doing her thing, women have a really awesome way of, as we talk about a lot, like bringing order to chaos, but they bring chaos as well. Yeah. And so I think that there's this balance that can come. And so this mug, I just really love it. And it's the perfect size.
Right. Totally.
So
it reminds me of like the Kathy, like kind of comic strips or whatever.
Yeah, it does.
In a way.
It's very much
old
like
school. It's like 90s or 80s or something.
And like from the back, this woman looks like the lady that I worked for when I worked at a soap shop. She owned this beautiful soap shop, and her name was Lori. And when I look at this mug, I kind of see her.
It
like,
totally looks like
it
Lori.
kind of looks like her from the back.
Like
and
back in
so,
the day.
Yeah, back in the day. And so I have very fond just feelings about this mug.
That's a good one.
On a lot of levels. So
nice.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, we got some new people joining us. Hank is saying first sunny day here in a month.
Wow.
Earth pipes are working.
Oh, sweet. Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. First sunny day in a month. Wow, considering where you live, that's crazy.
Yeah, especially.
I know you're saying that this is more normal than what people are, or some other people are saying online. But very interesting either way. All right. So Liam is saying, I make my own honey mix, local runny honey with lemon, garlic, ginger, turmeric, mixed spice, oregano, paprika, cumin, cayenne, and CBD oil. Nice,
Ooh, that
dude.
sounds awesome.
Yeah. That sounds rad.
And so you probably just take that and put it into hot water, I'm assuming, and I'm
Then you're
sure
good
you
to
can
go.
use it for all sorts of different things too.
Hey, family fun guy.
What's up, family fun guy?
Thank you for joining us.
Good to see
Saying
us.
hello. And then we had a beautiful day in Kentucky, but storms on the way. Polymathing, what's going on? Nice to see you.
Howdy, Lou.
And then Nicholas is here.
Hey, Nick.
What's up, dude?
How you doing?
Yeah, this is really tasty.
Yeah, I'm loving it. There's more on the stove. I made a big pot of it, so
Awesome.
we can go out and get more.
I'm into it.
Yeah, so today we were thinking about talking about a couple different things. But one of the things that came to mind was, we wanted to kind of continue the conversation a little bit about altar stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so when we were talking about altar pieces and, things like that, I brought up how, both of us, when we did a European trip, probably like 4 or 5 years ago now, where we went to multiple countries and we were gone for about 5 weeks, and it was amazing. And on that trip, I know both of us found things while we were in Europe that became altar pieces for us. And so we kind of thought about talking about, how do you know, one of the questions last week was kind of like, how do you know what to even put on your altar, And I can just remember times where you find certain things and it's almost like you find it and you're holding it in your hand. And at least for me, and I think Mario too, it's like you just feel that this is something that can go on the altar. And so, hi, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. Nice to see you.
And so in Europe, there were a few things that I brought home that to this day are still on my altar. And I knew from the moment that I laid my hands on them or I saw them that they were going to be altar pieces. And so from there, then we kind of started talking about some of the other places that we visited in Europe and some of the traditions that we learned about in certain areas. So
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
One tradition in particular.
yeah, one tradition in particular that we want to kind of explore a little more on a couple levels.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about first? Altar stuff or some of the Boss Castle stuff?
I kind of feel like doing the altar stuff because then it can like roll into.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I really like that. My Sherry, she brought up last time. Do you have an altar? How do you work with it? Blah blah blah. You kind of want to talk about, I think, more so pieces, adding pieces to your altar, and how you know what you want to add. And then I think I want to talk a little bit about kind of courting yourself to your altar and kind of what that looks like.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So go for
Why
it.
don't you start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, having an altar, it's really fun because you can really kind of have it your way, if you will.
Yes.
And so you can make it whatever you want to be, whatever makes sense for you. And it's been really cool just thinking about my process with my altar since last week and how I tend to treat it and everything else. And one of the suggestions that I was going to throw out there is that, I mentioned last time the fact that you can have like a small pocket altar, right? You can have like a tin can altar. You can have a little tin altar, right? And it's funny because you just saw online someone selling little tin altars that were kind of themed with, certain deities and stuff like that. And so I think that's beautiful, and I think that's really awesome. One sort of angle that you can use if you want to, if you think it makes sense for you, is that you can say, as an example, you can have 2 or 3 of an item. And so it could be like a coin. It could be any kind of little totem or like tchotchke sort of thing. It could be a sigil even. It could be all sorts of different things. Like, you know, you're not limited to what you can actually have be that thing. But as an example, you can have something on your altar that's permanently on your altar, but then you can have a duplicate of that thing, of that coin, as an example, and you can carry that around with you. And so, in a way, you're kind of corded with your altar. And so, and you can have fun with this sort of concept or whatever. And so, I think there are ways to symbolically take your altar with you anywhere you go by literally having some sort of cord, some sort of symbolic connection with your altar on you, on your person, wherever you're at. And so I've done that, you know, and to me, it just makes sense with where I'm at with my altar. And I kind of look at it almost like I have a chain back to my original altar. And then I feel like I have chains from that altar to other places and stuff. And so anyway, so I thought that that's something that could be worth trying out, I guess. And so, yes, your altar exists in your home. It's on a shelf. It is somewhere located within your room or whatever. But there are ways to kind of stay corded with it if you want to work with it that way.
Right.
And I encourage you, if you're going to have it, it does make sense to work with it, you know, to a certain degree. Like I was saying last time. So if you're aspiring towards a certain goal, if you're wanting to, say, increase your sort of elemental sort of awareness, I guess. If you feel like you're lacking fire, as an example, you can put something fiery on your altar, you know, and you can there's just so many different ways that you can actually do like personal shadow work actually with your altar. And I think that that's probably one of the greatest gifts the altar has given me, is it's actually helped me do a lot of shadow work. And it's helped me kind of go through, you know, different phases of my life, or it's helped me prioritize certain things. It's kind of nice because you actually kind of have like a visual representation. Oh, I think our internet went out. Okay. I think we were gone briefly, but I think we're back. So we'll see.
It is raining and
right,
windy, so
right.
I don't know if that would matter, but
so to me, the kind of cool thing about an altar is you actually literally have like a physical space, wherever it might be, and you have things on your altar space that are meaningful to you. And so it's really interesting and it's really cool to almost have this. It's almost like a distillation of your life in a way.
Ah, that's a really great way of saying it.
You know, it's just like this really potent, distilled sort of representation of the most important aspects of your life.
Right.
You know, is how I personally look at it.
Yeah.
You know, so I have things, all of the most important people in my life, they're all represented here on my altar in some way, shape, or form, you know. And so anyway, so those are some of the newer thoughts that I had since last week, but specifically this cording yourself to your altar sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a kind of a cool thing to do. And so then you're kind of with your altar at all times. And so hopefully I'm not being too vague with that either.
No, it makes sense because like you said in the beginning, it's, let's say you have two of something. So you could put something on your altar and then you can have it in your pocket. So you're constantly corded with it.
Right.
Or if you had more, you know, more than two things, you could do that. And I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, you know, because I mean, you could look at it too of like, because the altar is, if you want to call it a distillation of yourself or representative of you, you're kind of always corded to it regardless. Mm-hmm. But to like create a stronger cord, or even just like taking it a step further, it would be doing something like that.
Right.
Because then you could take one of those pieces and charge it in a place that you really care about.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so while it's charging there, it's literally charging in the space you've left it, but it's also charging on your altar.
Right.
So it's just like doubly effective.
Right.
Double, you know, double that power is going to come through. So
totally.
Yeah.
I feel kind of called to talk about one of my tarot techniques as well.
Oh, yeah, actually. You should. Yeah.
And actually, there's a few comments. So before I get into that, I just want to see what people are saying about the altar. I'm curious to hear about your guys' altar sort of techniques or practices if you feel like sharing. So
Yeah.
either in the chat or through a voicemail.
Or Telegram. Yeah. Feel
Yeah.
free and put stuff up on Telegram.
Totally. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Oh, cool. So Nicholas says that he has a cubensis mushroom on my altar.
Yeah, that's a psychedelic.
Nice. That's awesome. I've done that for sure.
Yeah, I too have one on my altar.
Yeah, I know.
I have one. I have cannabis as well. But yeah, I always have that.
Undoctorinated says my ex has multiple altars. But rim shot.
Nice.
Dude. Yeah, exactly. Isn't that interesting though that there is that overlap between altar and altar?
Yeah, no, I've definitely thought about that. Well, isn't it? It's spelled differently too, though. Like the ER versus AR
versus ER,
which I've misspelled before, but I'm kind of famous for misspelling things.
Indeed, for sure she is, guys.
So yeah,
but yeah, no, I think that's interesting, and I wonder maybe if part of it is that when you're working with your altar, you're working with your invisible self or your ka. Your other half,
right,
you know, sort of thing. So there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. Your soul, your spirit, you know, your invisible twin. That's another way of looking at it. And I feel like that's actually one of the really potent parts of Gemini, is that Gemini definitely has a lot to do with like twin symbolism, clearly, brother symbolism, lover symbolism, and all that. But there's also this aspect where you're actually referring to your invisible twin. You're referring to this other part of you. And the Egyptians had this concept of the Ka. And so I think that could definitely be part of it, is that, no, you have your own twin, like unbeknownst to most people, sort of thing.
Right.
So there's like the like physical, sort of maybe mundane aspect of who you are. And then there's also like this other side that's definitely more etheric and spiritual.
Right.
You know, so something to consider, think about. So that's what I'm saying, is maybe the altar, when you're creating an altar, you're working with your altar, your invisible altar.
Ah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. But anyways, I know what Ryan's saying here, obviously. That's funny, dude.
Right.
Liam, if you want to do a bong altar.
Oh, dude.
Absolutely.
I'd love to do a bong altar.
We don't have any bongs, though, anymore.
No, don't have a bong anymore. Had plenty of them throughout the years, though. They're always great.
So Polymathing is saying, nice, Nicholas. My altar is covered in various fungi. A small jar of cubensis is sitting with my dad's ashes so he can vibe in the after party. Nice, dude. That's really powerful.
That's really, really thoughtful. That's awesome.
So here Braden says, idea of an altar always makes me think of the mind palace, or the creation of your own temple of solace in your imagination. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really great way of looking at it. I think you're right. And there's kind of like what we said last time. There's multiple ways to use your altar. And I think there's just it's such a multifaceted sort of thing that people are going to use it in different ways. And so even people were saying, well, my house is my altar, or, you know, my land is my altar, things like that. And it's like, that's legit, you know?
Oh, yeah. No,
I don't see anything
yeah.
obviously wrong with that, clearly.
Yeah, no. It's like a very personal thing. So you have to do what feels good to you, right?
All right. Slick says, Ara altar constellation is the minor decan of Sagittarius. Rider Waite magician card is rocking his table full of elemental faculties. Yeah, dude, exactly. Yeah, so usually the Ara altar, it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like it's almost like a short, stubby kind of like pillar or something. Or maybe is it a cubic stone? I can't remember, but there's usually like a flame on top, if I'm not mistaken. And so the concept of fire too with an altar.
Wait.
No, it's like a little altar piece sort of thing. It's like a little stand.
Okay.
You know, kind of thing. And then there's fire on top of it. So it's a constellation, basically. Slick has gotten into it.
Okay.
A few times. Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like our audio is good. That's good.
Yeah,
because everything like blanked out on the screen.
Yeah, it
in
did.
StreamYard. So
it's weird.
It was strange. There you go. I like this, Nicholas. An altar is used to alter your reality.
That makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, Alice is saying it's a way to express cherished memories for sure. Okay, yeah. So Decoded is saying this reminds me of the polarity between the sun and the moon, probably the invisible self thing. The sun is the light, the self you see, yeah. The 12 steps of Horus / hours through the day, and the moonlight, the shadow self you don't see. And then he says, the 12 steps of Set also relates to Sin, old Arabic for moon god, through the night, the Ba and the Ka. Nice.
Wow. Yeah. Cody. Yeah. You always have so much stuff to share. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, Cody's great with that stuff. The 12 steps of Set, actually, I don't know if I'm familiar with that. I'm kind of curious to learn more about that. I wonder, does it have anything to do with the 12 signs or something along those lines, or does it literally have to do with just half the day, right? 24 hours. I'm assuming that's what you mean. The 12 steps of hours, yeah, through the day. The 12 steps of Set. Gotcha. Okay, nice. I've just never heard it referred to that as that. So Sunseed, hey there.
What's up, Rachel?
What do you think of showing people your altar? It's been a trend to share on places like Instagram. That's actually really, I'm glad you bring this up because that was one of the conversations we had. And I feel like that's why I asked, am I being a little vague? Because I'm not being specific about my courting practice with my altar.
Right.
Because if I did, I would show you guys, or I would at least explain in more detail like what's going on with that. And we talked about this last week, and you brought up the exact same thing. And I kind of feel a similar sort of way. Like, I don't know if I necessarily want to show people my altar. And it's not necessarily because I think someone might do something nefarious with it or black magical with it or whatever. But it's just like some things are best left being private, pretty much. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of how I feel about it. I almost have such a personal connection with my altar. And there are so many important pieces on there that just to kind of put it online or whatever, at least for me personally, it doesn't seem like, at least right now, is the right move. Is that how you feel about it?
Yeah. Well, I've shared pieces of my altar online and felt okay about that, but in terms of like actually taking a photo of everything or like how it's set up, because the things I even showed, I remember online, it was just a portion of what I have, right? You know, and then I have another section where don't want to be taking photos and sharing it, because same thing. I feel like there's something to be said about keeping your personal magic to your, like, close to your chest, because it's for you, and it's one thing to share with people who are close to you and stuff like that, or share your thoughts on it or your philosophies or maybe like tips or something like that. But when it comes to, you know, showing, even on Instagram, there's like a lot of people that are like doing full spells and stuff and showing all the things and all the stuff. And I have that same feeling about that kind of stuff of like, I don't know if that's what you want to do, go for it. But it doesn't feel like that's what it's meant to be. That's how it's meant to be.
A lot of people are very much protective of their natal charts as well.
And
that they won't just put their natal chart online, because then somebody knows exactly, you know, your whole makeup, I guess, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
And so I totally get that. And so I think probably maybe earlier on, years ago, I probably would have been more okay with the natal chart thing of just like, oh, who cares, whatever. But nowadays, I'm kind of maybe more so like what's the point, I guess, or what's there to gain, I guess, by doing that.
Sharing that.
Yeah, I think there's actually perhaps more to gain by keeping it private.
Yeah, I can see that.
And keeping it for you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that kind of work this way too. And so you don't always just want to put your business sort of out there. So I do think it's a fine line, and I respect people who feel either which way about it.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to show, you know, what they have going on like that. And so it all just depends on how you roll. But I see where you're coming from. Absolutely. So not a bad idea to kind of just keep it close to your chest. All right.
Yeah, and I think by sharing like the pieces, it's almost more it's more intriguing that way too. And I think like they want to be shown in a certain way. The sharing of pieces I think is the way to go. But to each its own.
Right.
Yeah, I did. I put pieces up. It wasn't my full altar, but the pieces, and it looked so nice because I did it even just for myself. I cleared the altar and I put it onto my clipboard, and I was looking at it and I'm like, damn, this looks nice all together. And I didn't even when I put the pieces down on the clipboard, I had no intention to even share it or anything. And I was looking at it and I'm like, wow, this actually could be a very nice photo for,
Yeah.
for Instagram. And so it ended up just working out. So
Totally. Right. So Decody is clarifying one of my questions earlier. I've only read about it a couple times. Just the mirror of the 12 steps of Horus, usually only spoken on during the equinox time, showing the equal nature of the two selves / day and night in balance. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, Alice is saying it's like opening your home for the world to see. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So Rachel's just saying here too, agreed. I've shared some placements because it seems relevant for teaching, but not everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then Binna, hey there, by the way. I don't know if I said hello yet.
Yeah, what's up, Binna?
I like it. I think that some objects like to be shown. My products love being shown off. Yeah, that's actually interesting too.
Yeah.
It can add magic if you broadcast the altar. Yeah, see, I mean, it's to each, their own sort of thing. So nobody enjoys a full frontal altar. That's funny.
Nice. That reminds me of that famous photo. It says "expose yourself to art," and it's a guy in a trench coat.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
Open trench coat, and he's exposing himself to the statue.
Right. I think that was a Portland-based photo.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a really great one.
Because Bud was telling us one time that it was a guy who was either the mayor or was running to be mayor.
Okay.
And so he knew about the history of that photograph because it's perfect.
It's so funny. Yeah, and it was in a local coffee shop by our old house.
Oh, see, that makes sense.
Yeah, for a while.
Exactly.
I remember they always had it there.
Exactly. So because we're talking about altar stuff, one of the things that I do with my tarot, I'd love to know if anyone out there does this, but this is how I generally do readings for myself. And oftentimes the card that I pull, I'll put it on the altar or I'll do the reading on the altar. Not all the time, but I think it's very much related because I have a very strong tarot connection with my altar as well. So when I'm using the tarot, honestly, it's kind of like an extension of my altar, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing with an altar too. It's like there is at least there's like an implied sacred center that kind of like stabilizes your magic, which is what the sacred center often does, like the world axis. It stabilizes things, and then it gives a still point that everything can kind of revolve around. And so it almost gives structure. It gives like a framework, and it gives your spiritual practice, something to revolve around, pretty much, just like a wheel and the hub of a wheel,
right.
The axle of a wheel. And so, so when I'm doing tarot, it's very much related to my altar, regardless of where I'm doing it at. And one of the things that I've been doing a lot lately, and I've been doing this for years too, by the way, and this tends to be how I do readings for myself personally, is, as an example, I've been doing it more so lately because it's just been calling to me, essentially, to pull a card at night, like one card a night. But what I do is I allow that card to not be flipped over or seen until the morning. And so that card has been there all night. And when we go on trips, I will do the exact same thing, and I will have that card on my altar literally the whole entire trip. And so if we're gone for a month, then that same card is there for a month, and I literally do not flip it until I come home. And so I pulled it just before the trip. It's on my altar, and then a month later, I'll flip it. And it's just, to me, there's something about letting it stew like that kind of adds, I don't know, there's some sort of juju that's kind of added. You're kind of charging that card more, and you're kind of charging that reading a little bit more too. And so I love that. That's one of my favorite things to do. It's sometimes like the last thing I do on a trip too, because we're packing and there's just things going on. And then the last thing I'll do is pull a card, and I know that when we come back from the trip, then I'm going to be able to see the card. And so then when I come back, at least personally for me, I always look forward to seeing what the card is. And I look forward to seeing how it informs what I just went through. Like it's almost kind of like, what was the theme of the trip in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I've been liking doing this at night too because it's so simple. But I found myself really looking forward to seeing what the card is the next morning. It's almost like you're giving yourself a little gift or a little present, sort of thing. And so that's kind of how I've been looking at it, at least. And so it's very slight, but it's just enough to put me in, I guess I'll say, a holistic or spiritually minded, emotionally minded sort of like mindset, where I'm already at the beginning of my day, because this has been a big thing for me, guys, is like my morning routine has been, it's needed a lot of work. And so I'm very much right brain. I love to stay up. I love to sleep in, because I stay up basically. And that has kind of like ran its course, I would say.
Yeah.
And so for many, many years, I've been like, what's my routine? What's my evening routine? What's my morning routine? Just so that I can have more consistency, so I can be more productive and things like that. And so even just having a card to inform me of what I need to be aware of throughout the day, or it just gives me just that extra insight, before I get things going, has been really, really interesting and really, really cool. And so I love ending my day by pulling a card, knowing that I've set the intention throughout the evening or throughout the morning too, that I have a card waiting for me, and I'm paying attention to what spirit wants me to see, and then actually flipping the card in the morning. It's just been a nice little routine that I've had going on lately.
Yeah, and you've really honed in your morning routine like over the last handful of months. I would say throughout the winter you got really
Yeah, throughout the winter. This winter was me just trying to be a lot more considerate
and
of all
intentional
those things.
with it
Intentional.
and stuff. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
it's
Totally.
been it's been good. So it's made a difference, I can tell.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, anyways, because we're talking about the altar thing, just thought I would throw that out there.
Well, and I'll say too, the card practice, we've done it too with runes. We'll do it with runes every once in a while. But over the years, when we've done that, when Mario has pulled a card and then we've come home and we flip it, usually almost every time it's kind of like, oh, whoa, that lines up so well. Or then it helps us even to reflect on the trip in a different way, because then you can kind of see there's like there'll be a running theme, or you could see how the card was influencing the trip, or it like had a mood, or there's an overlying kind of energy or something like that.
Right.
And the card expresses that.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then in hindsight, it's like, oh, wow, okay, this is pretty cool. It's lining up here.
Totally.
Which
totally.
that stuff usually typically does. So,
Right.
yeah.
So the idea of like long-term readings to me is really interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
Or like long-term rituals, or long-term sort of workings and whatever. So definitely into that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Cool. So Polymathing was saying that he missed the stream last week because he passed out from exhaustion. But the last thing he did was clean his altar for the first time in a year before falling asleep. So that's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. It always feels so good to clear them.
Okay, Mario Sam, I'm going through the Thelemic Holy Day, studying the Major Arcana new card every day. Nice. Yeah, that's a really great way of doing it. I did that for a while too. And so there's so many interesting ways on how to strengthen your bond with the tarot, or build a bond with the tarot, and memorize the cards and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do like that method. Absolutely. One card a day. One of the interesting ones that I read in a book one time was start with the first card of the Major Arcana, the full card, and literally that is your card until you encounter somebody that represents the Fool.
I remember this. You did it for a while.
I did do it for a while. And so then you would wait. And so it could be days, it could be weeks,
or
it could be months. But once you encounter somebody that represents the Fool for whatever reason, it's like seared into your brain. And so now you actually have like a real life experience to correlate with that card. And then you move on to the Magician. And then same thing. You don't progress until you find somebody or come across somebody that represents that card. And then so on and so forth. So the guy who was writing it was saying that he's had people, because this was like, he was like a teacher, and he was saying that he's had people that Like we're doing that for a really long, like years, I think.
Oh, I believe it.
But every single time though that they progressed forward, it was for good reason. It's because that energetic quality literally was manifested in their life. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that I remember that that
But
practice
yeah,
you did
taking
for a
your
while.
time with understanding all this stuff makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because otherwise you end up just going through the memorization kind of protocol
Yeah.
that school likes to put you through.
Right.
And you really then don't learn, you're just memorizing. And so it's one, I mean, obviously memorization can be very useful too, don't get me wrong, but I feel like taking your time and actually really like allowing things to sink in or allowing things to come through in your real life, and to connect them,
Totally.
it's so much more meaningful
No, it's true.
than just
Yeah.
memorizing,
Exactly.
whatever it's supposed to be.
So yeah, Nicholas, same man. I always keep the astrological signs card on the altar through the zodiac. Yep, I do the exact same thing for sure. So I've got the Emperor on my altar right now, which that's going to be my stream for tomorrow. So I actually got, speaking of tarot, I got all of my tarot cards and I scanned all of them and I created slides for every single one. And I'm literally going to go through all of my Emperor cards tomorrow night. And I'm going to go through them in order too, from the oldest to the newest.
It's going to be cool. Those slides look really good.
Yeah. So some of these cards are from like the 15th century,
Yeah.
so that's pretty wild. And
Yeah.
so, anyway, obviously, clearly reproductions and all that. But to know that I have cards that go all the way back, all the way up until probably my newest card is maybe, I don't know, 2020 or 2019 or something like that. So, spanning that much time to me is really interesting. So, and I've got a lot of cool cards, so that'll be a good time.
Yeah, it will.
Let's see what's going on. Okay, so Slick is saying, I like it already.
Yeah, me too.
The hearth was the sacred altar in the old Greek households. Yeah, that makes sense. And they were very particular around keeping it private. Makes sense, man. Many modern practices today grew out of those rites. I can totally see that, dude. Yeah, exactly. The hearth is the center of the home, right? It's the heart of the home. And so, yeah, that's really powerful stuff, man. And to me makes absolute perfect sense for
Yeah,
sure.
it does.
It reminds me too of like the Vestal Virgins and the sacred fire
Oh yeah.
and keeping the sacred fire alive and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, makes a lot of sense, dude. And actually, I'm kind of curious. I wonder what and I should just Google this later, but like the average Greek home, how is it designed? What did it look like? What materials were they using? Things like that. Because the thing I've brought up multiple times over the last handful of months is the idea of a circular home, like a dome home, or like a yurt or a teepee or a hut. And then where's the hearth? The hearth is literally in the middle of their space.
Yeah.
It's the sacred center of the home. It's where the family would congregate, and so it's just beautiful because if you're all around the fire too, you're all looking at each other, but you're all in one sort of collective kind of unit versus if the fire is part of the wall, it's just almost, it's like a half circle, right? Or it's
Right.
like people in chairs looking at the fire. But having it right there in the middle makes so much practical sense too, because then, it heats up the whole entire place basically.
Yeah, and then it's more conductive for everything and conversation and sharing and
Right.
all sorts of stuff.
Right, right, right.
Which I mean, I think that's what the fire. It obviously it's meant for survival, and that's like the basic thing with it. But having conversation around the fire, that was very important too.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, just even looking at the word hearth, it's a heart is right there. And then, so you remove the first H, it says earth. And then you remove the last H and it says heart.
Yeah.
So there is a relationship with the sacred center
And
and all
her.
this stuff. And her. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Right. So Ben is just saying, I like that. Like waiting to open a present. That's how I feel about it. Yeah. Nice. Just cruising through some of the other comments here before maybe you want to share your stuff with
Oh,
your
yeah,
altar sort
totally.
of concepts.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, man. Nicholas, it'll be a good time. Absolutely. So I'm excited for this one for a few reasons. Thanks, Braden. Yeah. Hope to see you guys there.
Yeah, he's been working on it. It's been nice to see him like getting more consistent with the live streams too.
Totally. Slick is in. I've been contemplating an entire major arcana tarot based philosophical school curriculum. Dude, you should totally do it. 100%. I mean, yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what's up, Lucas? Can a drum kit be an altar? I like to sit down and connect with that. It alters my state of mind for sure.
Ah,
Yeah,
I think
man.
so.
Absolutely.
That's
for sure.
awesome.
You know how many drummers, dude, where their drum kit has like some sigil on it, or it's just like some sort of custom artwork or whatever. It's like your throne, dude. You know.
It is.
Yeah, so for sure, absolutely.
Who's your favorite drummer, Lucas? Who's a drummer that you look up to? I'd like to know that.
Nice. Yeah, I'd be curious to know. I probably won't know who they are though.
Yeah, maybe I won't either. I don't know.
Right.
I always like hearing that though. People who are really, have an instrument that they're really connected with typically have other people that they look up to. Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited because we're extending our garden this year. And one of the things that I drew into the garden plan and we talked about was putting a fire pit inside the garden. So we're like fencing off the brand new garden space and then like actually having a designated area for fire within the garden. And I just cannot wait for that because right now we just have, we have like a portable fire pit thing that you can do. But it'll be really nice to have it just be the designated fire area within the garden.
Oh yeah.
Can't wait.
Totally.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
There's going to be more fires in our future. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Awesome. Well, do you want to talk about maybe some of the thoughts you had with your altar stuff?
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, it all kind of just was sparked because when we started talking about this and we started talking about Europe and some of the altar pieces that I brought back from there, I was reminded of one of the special places we visited, which was in Cornwall, England, called Boscastle. And Boscastle is a small, like, village town, kind of in rural Cornwall. It's a coastal town. It's something special. I mean, we ended up, so we flew into a place called Newquay, which is also in Cornwall, which is also fairly coastal as well. A super small airport, really just old, quaint, like cobblestone homes and stuff. And we took a walk and we ended up going to this really small, like little cafe, and they had pasties. That's what they're called. They're like the little pocket. It's
right.
like a meal in just a like
it's like a hot pocket kind of.
It's like a hot pocket.
It's like an English hot pocket.
Yeah, but it's way better, and it's like a very traditional, food. And it's Cornish and whatever. And so we were there and we're like walking around and you can just feel the ancient old energy there, the magic. And there was this really old cemetery, and I had never been to Europe or England. So it was just a really cool experience. So anyway, we ended up taking a bus to Boscastle, and we stayed in Boscastle for a couple days. And the reason we went to Boscastle is because there's a museum there called the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. And that was the main reason we went to Boscastle. And so we got off the bus, and as soon as we got off the bus, I was like, oh my God, I felt such a deep connection. Like I felt as though I had been there before. It's that kind of experience for me anyway, where I just had very, very strong connection. And so anyway, we went to the Witchcraft Museum, and both of us were just like totally stoked because they have some of the most obscure magical items.
Oh yeah, they
probably
have
of
real
any
historical items there.
Yeah, of any other place. I mean,
Yeah.
and so it's just a really cool, awesome thing. And actually, when we were there, one of the exhibits, the main exhibit was a Crowley exhibit.
Yeah.
And so they had like they had Thoth deck stuff. They had like
lots of like OTO Golden Dawn stuff.
Yeah.
Enochian magic. They had some John Dee stuff. So that was kind of like their exhibit that they had temporarily.
Yeah, they have rotating
but they had
exhibits.
actual like real ceremonial items. So wands and scepters and like robes and like the Enochian magical square stuff, like cube things that had the Enochian script all over it, and stuff like that. So it was really cool. We literally actually we made a whole day of it,
We did.
and it's probably, I mean, you could cruise through it kind of quickly if you wanted to, but we literally read every single like placard sign thing in the whole entire museum. And so many people passed us up, but we just spent like hours there because it was so cool.
It
And
was
that's
the coolest.
one of the things that we wanted to do was go to this witchcraft museum.
Yeah.
And we learned so much too. I actually have photos still. I don't think I've even looked at them since we went, but I have photos of that whole entire place, of all the actual like sort of like magical things that I wanted to remember. I took photos of everything.
Yeah, so did I. And
Yeah.
I just remember just wanting to take photos of everything, and they had charms from all over the world and different stories that were connected to it and what have you. And so anyway, one of the magical practices and traditions in Boscastle was the concept and the idea of the witches selling the wind.
Yeah, I had never heard about this,
I
but it
hadn't
was really
either.
cool. So they actually had, I don't know what you would call it, but like sort of like coastal seafaring magic.
Yeah, sea
and
witch
like
magic.
and folk magic.
Yep.
For like sailors and stuff who were about to go on some long trip and whatever. And so I know you lit up when you came across all this stuff.
I
for
did.
sure. Which is why you're bringing this up.
And this is why we're talking about it, because it was such an impactful thing. So the story goes, and the way Boscastle is, and who knows, maybe we can post a few photos or something in Telegram of Boscastle, because I think I still have a few. But the cliffs of Boscastle, and then you're right on the water. It is gorgeous, but the wind is really, really, really intense. And so the witches would go up to the cliffs, and they would take a rope. And this is actually a Sami tradition as well. So this is like a long tradition throughout multiple different cultures. But basically the idea is taking a rope, and you're tying a series of knots in the rope. And when you're doing that, you're harnessing
3 knots.
Yeah, 3 knots, but it's not always 3, but 3.
That was the common one, though,
This
right?
was the common one, was 3. And so with each knot, you're harnessing the wind inside that knot. And so the witches would do this, and then they would come down to the harbor of Boscastle, and they would sell the wind. They would sell these ropes to the sailors, because Boscastle was a huge, it was kind of an industry, like a fisherman's industry town back in the day. And it's a really old town. So it dates back to the 15th century. And there's even some of the buildings there and some of the houses are old, like 15th, 16th century. So they're still very original homes. So the witches would sell the ropes to the sailors. And if they were out to sea and they did not have enough wind to sail, they could release the first knot. And it would give them enough wind to get to their destination. And then if that did not give them enough wind, they could untie the second knot. And that was supposed to give them a stronger force of wind. And at no time were they supposed to untie the third knot, because with the third knot, it would bring on storm winds that could actually devastate their boat and their whole journey.
Right.
So that whole concept really just brought joy to my heart hearing that. And then there's a lady on YouTube. Her name is Freya Norling, and she does a lot of Nordic, Sami, Arctic magic. And she has a video on wind magic specifically, and talks about how the Samis, they really needed to pay attention to the weather because it was so cold and the wind could change quickly, and they might have to go out to maybe fish or hunt or something for the day, but they would need to know what the wind or the weather might be bringing them. And so they would do this wind ritual with the tying of the knots and, harnessing the wind. And it's a relevant practice too, of just how you can even do this on like a symbolic level in your life. If you're needing, energy to move,
Right.
if you were to harness the wind and then you have your wind rope inside your home or whatever, wherever you would have it, and you can release that first knot to kind of bring energy, bring a flow of wind, bring that change that wind always brings. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a really cool practice. But yeah, and then I just think it's fitting that we live at Wind Mountain.
Right.
So, but yeah, Boss Castle, I highly recommend it. I want to go back someday and spend more time there. Because yeah, it was pretty magical there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The thing it reminded me of, I love this too. I think it's very interesting. Well, there's some comments here about this wind business. This caught my eye because Venice says I'm a wind witch. People know when I'm cranky in the morning, but it drops once I have a coffee and a joint and get my happy on. Okay, gotcha. Okay, knots per horai.
Naughty by nature.
Yeah, so Elsie King is saying rope is related to mind, wind is mind. Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, so the thing I thought was really interesting because we started talking about this last night, and this idea of braiding or spinning, right, or of weaving, and how the weave or the braid, and then I would say kind of by extension the knot, it brings order. And so I totally think of the illustration that I've shown many times during my presentations, but the Weeping Virgin, where it's like the maiden, Virgo, and then Saturn, Kronos is right behind her, and he's separating her hair, right? So I think what he's doing is he's actually unknotting her hair. He's untangling her hair. And then I think the step after that, which you're not seeing in the illustration, would be him braiding her hair, And so I think that with knots and braids and weaves, it's symbolic of kind of like weaving the fabric of reality. And that is to say, kind of like creating order out of chaos, I would say, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally.
So to me, it's like, how do you make a rope? You're using whatever fibrous material, and then you're spinning it together, and then you're creating, these threads, and then you get those threads, and then you spin those together, and then you create rope,
Right.
And so then you knot it, and then you're kind of securing this energy, you're binding that energy. So then when you untie it, you're unbinding that energy, And so I just think kind of the symbolism behind it's really interesting. And then also one of the other things we're talking about is how I just think it's fascinating that when I think of air, I think of the swords, right? And so when I think of the swords and I think of air, I think of logic, and I think of things that are related to being like analytical and sort of like pattern recognition in a way, kind of, or at least like categorizing things, I guess maybe is a better way of putting it. So as an example, I think that like the analytical left brain side of us likes to put things in categories. It likes to put labels on things. It likes to have all of these groupings of things. We like to make sense out of chaos.
Right.
I think our analytical brain, that's what it likes to do, is see the patterns within kind of anything. And so then you're labeling stuff and whatever. And so I think that you can make the case that, air symbolism, sword symbolism is very left-brained, right? Yet with all of the elements, if you have too much of any element, it gets chaotic, But there's something about a windstorm. There's something about wind, because we do live at Wind Mountain. There's something about wind that feels particularly chaotic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It screams, it can howl. There's stuff blowing around all over the place.
It's kind of disorienting.
Yeah, it's totally disorienting.
It kind of tricks you. It can play tricks on you with the sound.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, sorry to cut you
No,
off.
no, you're good.
But just one of the things living out here, when we were first adjusting to it, you could hear the wind like for miles away. You hear the rumbling, the rustle of it, but it's still around you. And then all of a sudden, a few minutes later, that wind you were hearing just comes and just swirls through the trees and everything. And it's one of my favorite things about being out here is that experience by itself.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's like it almost gives you a warning that it's coming. It's just really cool.
No, I think it's cool too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like to think of the elements when they're tame and when they're being used in a like a productive sort of way, and when you have control over it. But you also have to think about the elements when they're literally like cranked up to 11, like when they are like unfathomably strong.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, keep going.
So fire or something. We have a candle right here that's very tame. It's not even moving anywhere because there's no wind in the room or anything, but we have a candle right here. But it's like this same candle, one match, one spark can literally lead to like a forest fire, which can destroy a whole town, right? Or whatever. And so I just think it's interesting to think about the elements like that. And so when I think of air, I think of, once again, the logical side of things, the analytical side of things, but then I also think of extreme air, and personally I think of wind, and how chaotic and disruptive that can be, but also how completely necessary it is too.
Yeah, no, totally. It stirs things up.
We live in a elemental sandbox, and so it's like the elements are here to play pretty much. And so in certain ways, I think that's actually what the magician's table in the magician card, that's kind of what it's symbolically representing. I think, it's on a table. Tables have 4 legs, 4 corners. And then you literally have a representation of the 4 elements on the table. And so to me, it kind of symbolically almost represents like Earth in a way, the 4 corners of Earth. And literally it's like, this is where the elements come to play and mix with each other, coagulate with each other, and then, break off from each other, dissolve from each other, or whatever you want to say. But it's where all of these things happen. So there's a tame aspect to all of the elements. But then there's also a very like extreme, terrifying aspect to all of the elements.
Yeah, and it can happen really fast.
Just like Boss Castle.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, go for it.
So that we're talking about the elements being crazy and how quickly they can take over. So another thing that we learned about Boss Castle when we were there, because we stayed at an Airbnb with this woman. Oh, her house was so cute. It was just this awesome place. I can see it in my mind's eye. I can feel the vibe of her home. It was really nice. And she was just a very nice older woman who's lived in Boscastle for a long time. And she had a little zine up in the room we stayed in, and it was all about the flood that happened in Boscastle. And it was in 2007, I believe.
Oh, dang. That's more recent than I thought.
Yeah, it was more recent. So I remember reading it and being like, oh my goodness. So as I was saying, Boscastle is literally it's basically right on the water, but it's kind of like a cove because there's like big cliffs around it. And then it's almost like the little town is in like a little valley, and there's a river that comes off of the ocean and it runs through the town. And so anyway, in 2007, there was a really like a flash flood that came in and pretty much wiped out like a big portion of the town.
And the museum, hey J-Lo, I see you just joined us.
What's up, J-Lo?
So we're talking about a town called Boscastle in England, in Cornwall, and they have this museum called the Witchcraft, or the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really cool place. And we spent like a good amount of time there. But actually, the museum is really close to the ocean.
It's like almost right there.
It's like a couple minute walk or whatever.
Oh, less than that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind
like
of
right
a
there.
stone's throw, actually,
Yeah.
because
You're
there's
right.
like a little restaurant that is like almost right on the water, and they kind of have an area where you can launch boats and stuff. And just right across from that little restaurant is the museum, but the water is just right there. And so the in 2007 there was a flood, and the people described it as it was a bright sunny day. It was really nice outside, and then all of a sudden it just got pitch black. It was dark, and over the water you could see there was a storm approaching, and within minutes the whole place, the whole area of Boscastle was just flooded, like really bad, rushing in water. People could not leave. You couldn't drive out. It was just like if you were there, you had to hunker down because it was getting flooded.
Yeah.
And it was pretty devastating. And the museum took a pretty big hit.
They lost a lot of pieces.
They lost a lot of pieces, like old, obviously one of a kind, irreplaceable magic totem pieces that will never be, you could never find them again,
They're at the bottom of the ocean.
At the bottom of the ocean out there, And so the ocean came in and like wanted something. That was the sense I got. So as I read this story and I was talking to the woman about it, in my mind, I just kept thinking like, wow, there's a lot of interesting stuff attached to the museum itself, particularly the man who took it over. He didn't start the museum from what I remember. The museum used to be on the Isle of Man, if I remember right.
Is that right?
I think so.
That's
and then
really interesting.
And then it was moved to Boscastle.
Right.
And the guy who ended up taking it over, his name was Cecil Williams.
The Isle of Man, by the way, is the sacred center for the British Isles. So it's like the middle of it. Gabe's probably going crazy right now because that was one of his weaves not too long ago. But that's really interesting. I forgot about that detail.
Yeah, I don't 100% quote me, but I that's what I remember anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and so it was moved to Boscastle. Cecil Williamson. Yeah, I think Cecil Williamson was his name.
I can't remember.
Anyway, you can look all this stuff up online. But he has interesting connections. So he had kind of like, what is it called? MC5? Is that what it in?
Oh, like MI5.
MI5, MC5. I'm thinking of the band. MI5 connections and stuff. So you got to wonder about that. But he was a very like magical man. And one of the stories that's actually in the museum is about how when he died, his family was going through his house and they found that one of his working rituals that it was like in the midst of happening while he died. And I got the sense that, the ocean came back and, like you said, Nick, reclaimed something. Something got reclaimed.
Thinking about it on that level is pretty epic.
And that was my first hunch.
That's what you said last night, basically.
Yeah, and it was my first hunch when I learned about that of like, oh, whoa, I bet the ocean wanted something. Somebody wanted something back. That was in that museum. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason there was a flood or whatever, but that was my first instinct. And I think that it might have there's something there.
Jack Parsons created a storm because L. Ron Hubbard took his boat.
Oh, I remember this.
I'm pretty sure that's the information. If I have that wrong, if someone knows the details, let me know. But yeah, that was the whole thing, is that L. Ron Hubbard
he took his wife.
He took his wife or girlfriend, whatever, and then took his boat. And so Jack Parsons literally did a windstorm ritual to prevent him from leaving. I can't remember where the boat was at the time or where he took it or whatever. And apparently it worked. One of the Jack Parsons books I read mentioned this.
This makes sense. I mean,
so you don't know. I mean, the actual thing about it, to me, it's like we know there's people manipulating weather.
Exactly. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So to me, it's like, how long has weather manipulation been a thing, and how many techniques have there been for weather manipulation, from like a magical perspective to like what do they call it? Cloud seeding and stuff like that.
Right.
To other techniques or whatever, which is really interesting too, because the other thing that we brought up yesterday talking about all this stuff is the idea, and I love this metaphor, guys. I think it's so cool. But there's a whole idea that what is going on above our heads is basically like there's an alchemical lab above our heads, and it's called the weather system, and it's like weather patterns and things like that. So just the way the wind currents and the way the clouds and moisture in the air and the heat of the sun and daytime and nighttime and atmospheric pressure and like all this kind of stuff. It's like basically there's like an alchemical system literally happening above our heads, which is like the weather system pretty much. And so I've heard this explained. I'm trying to think of where I read this from. It was a book actually about tarot.
Okay.
And the guy was explaining this whole entire idea of, I think he was actually using the temperance card as the example, because usually the temperance card, she's pouring from cup to cup. And he was saying that this is basically kind of like a microcosm of showing you how the weather, how our weather system works from above to below. And then it kind of just gets recycled again, you know? And so he was just making this metaphor.
Right.
So anyway, so there's definitely, there are like traditions and rituals and spells and things like that to control the weather. That's like been an old folklore thing for like a really long time.
Yeah, and there's an old folklore that there's witches that would like conjure up hailstorms and things like
Right,
that, you know.
totally.
So they were conjuring storms or
Yeah.
for whatever reason that they would do that. You know, but yeah, I don't know. There was something about Boscastle and that feeling like that could be something going on there, but
Totally.
Yeah.
So Slick says, "Yep, storm summoner, typhon magic, typhonian magic."
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, exactly.
well, and Mario brought up why am I blanking on the name of it? Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Like that the flood kind of being Cthulhu energy.
Totally. I think Cthulhu and Typhon, it's the same current.
Okay.
It's the same symbolic sort of archetypal current, in my opinion.
Right.
And then Nicholas here says, "Wizards have created weather for time immemorial."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Well, and I'm seeing saying
Oh,
the
yeah.
Native Americans. Yeah, the rain dance. I
Totally.
mean, you know what I mean? That's one of the more stereotypical, or not even
like a
stereotypical, but
common-
just the most common thing that you would hear, you know, stories of. So yeah, it makes sense.
So Cozy Crone says, "Wait, do you think that implants could just be to deter actual weather witches?"
Implants of
Yeah, that's the only word I'm
yeah, I'm not
kind of
sure,
wondering about. Yeah.
but it could be. I mean,
Or you know what I think too? You know, it's part of the weather magic,
huh?
the fucking weather forecast.
It is. Oh my god.
And just the fact that we are, I mean, it depends on where you live, I think, but just the fact that we have a weatherman
Right.
who's telling us what's going to happen tomorrow
Right.
and the next day and next week. Why is that like an agenda or program, or why there's more than meets the eye with that, I think.
There it is, and then it's the classic case of I can't trust the weatherman, but they watch him every day. They know that it's like not gonna work out the way the weatherman says, but they keep on saying it. Oh, and then there's that group from the '60s that were known as
Weather Underground.
The Weather Underground.
Yeah, totally.
So anyway, and they were doing all sorts of shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm gonna let Carl in.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say maybe we can get my phone, but I was also gonna get some chai
Okay.
too. So
Hang back in here.
sure, yeah. Yeah, well, this is such a cool rabbit hole, you guys. I encourage people to look up Boscastle. It's totally my little it's one of those things, you know, we all have these like happy places in our minds. They're like the memories that you have of a place. Boscastle is one of those places where I'll sometimes like just meditate on the feelings I had there, and it's really special to me, and it's just a really cool area. And so if you ever get a chance to travel over there, yeah, it's worth it. Hey,
Nice.
Dieter.
You want to fill us up on chai and
Yeah,
get your phone?
I'll get some chai. You
Cool,
Carl
cool.
can hold it down.
We'll hold it down. Don't worry about it.
Sounds good. You're a good boy.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me get this in focus. Let's see here. I'm sure it'll sort itself out. Okay, I'm just going to read some comments here. Okay. All right, Nicholas, Gonna get another cup of coffee. Right on. Sounds good. In my area, a lot of Indians, and I can feel their altars and spiritual practices when I scan the area, feeling the field. Nice. That's cool. What would be cool too is if my camera focused. Nice. There I am. Okay. Weather advisory. Right. All right. So Lucas is saying here the sun affects the oceans, lifting up the waters and salts. The winds circulate and create an atmospheric electrolyte. Interesting. Okay. Um, yeah, I think obviously most people, when they think of tides and things like that, they tend to think of the moon. Is that an inversion by chance? Is that what you're saying, or am I misrepresenting what you're trying to say? So going back to what I was saying regarding Jack Parsons, Slick is saying Hubbard's first name is Lafette. Lots of Caribbean ships captains in Davy Jones' locker under those waters with name Lafette. Gotcha. Okay, interesting. Huh. I did not know that that was his first name. So I don't know if I read this one, but Nicholas says when I moved back to Utah last summer, everyone was complaining about drought. I did some workings and got tons of snow this winter. I feel like I had something to do with it. Yeah, man. I mean, perhaps I have not done that kind of work. But I do think that's really interesting. The closest thing I probably have gotten to doing something like this is basically, what do they call it? It's like you're like cloud busting, but you're not using like Oregon or anything like that. You're just literally you're like looking at a cloud and then you're trying to disperse it. And I've done that a few times with a friend who was really into that, and she was really into sylphs too, which are like the elementals related to air. And so I don't know. I think that all sorts of things are definitely possible. I just don't have any experience with it. But I do think that people have been manipulating weather for a lot longer than what you realize. We've talked about this before, but there's a Woodstock documentary that I don't know. I think they had a re-release or something like that a handful of years ago, but we saw it. And, we're pretty convinced over here that Woodstock was pretty much like an open air sort of experiment, in so many different ways. And one of the things that I thought was pretty crazy was that during Woodstock, they had rain. And so the people who were at Woodstock were not prepared for rain. And so you had a lot of young people who were like, basically, they literally came with like what they were wearing pretty much. And then they were partying. And logistically, being at Woodstock was not very comfortable because there were so many people there. And so once it started raining, everyone pretty much just like huddled together, basically. And it left, obviously, the ground very muddy and things like that. And it was a pretty miserable experience for people. And one of the things that was really interesting, though, in this documentary, they're showing footage of just like, crowds of people walking by this camera, and then these young guys come up to the camera and they start talking to the camera operator, and they start saying something along the lines of like, those pigs, they were seeding the clouds. And he said, we saw the plane seeding clouds. And so these guys were basically saying that whomever was behind it literally had planes, and that they were cloud seeding above Woodstock, and they actually literally created the storm.
Yeah.
So further implying that everything was an experiment of some kind.
Yeah.
And that footage was from literally when was Woodstock?
1969.
Yeah, from 69.
August 1969.
Yeah. So it's just like, so there was guys back then who were aware of this technology enough to call it out and stuff.
Right.
So
I have to situate myself here.
Oh yeah, it's all good. How dare you?
And I think dude is not going to stay. You done or what? You want to go? Okay, see you later.
Cozy Crone has a good relationship with the sylphs. That's cool. Indeed, indeed. Sylphs, undines, salamanders, and elementals are my friends. Haha, for sure. What's an undine? So those would be the elementals related to water. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. So sylphs are the elementals related to air, undines, water, salamanders would be fire, and then gnomes would be for earth. Yeah. And so yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Very interesting. Yeah, I know. So wow, Woodstock seating, interesting. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's right there. I mean, it's one of the main. I'm actually surprised they kept it in the film. Really.
Right.
Because it's pretty obvious. And then the cameraman looks up to the sky with the camera, and there's literal chemtrails in the sky above the crowds and stuff.
Wow, I don't remember that part.
Yeah, it's there. They show it.
Nice. So if you're in the Telegram, Slick said that he left us something, and it's some graphic.
All right, I am in the Telegram. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so gonna take a look here. Gabe, he did a magician card with us on it. That's awesome. I wonder if we can show this. Is there a way to pull this stuff up on the screen?
Oh my god, dude.
Gabe,
that's really funny.
That's awesome.
Nice. That's super hilarious. We have to figure out a way to show it.
We'll figure out something.
Well, okay, so our internet sucks. So that's kind of like the thing.
I wonder if we can try.
So let's try for the very first time. This is a last Thursday first effort here to share our screen.
Yes.
So you guys can see this graphic because I want you guys
Gabe,
to see
it's
it.
so brilliant. That's awesome. I hope it works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't.
You know how I like to say that like Mother Nature is like the best artist?
Yeah.
What if it's actually Slick Dissident? What if Slick Dissident is actually the best artist?
I think so.
Looking at this. Yeah, exactly.
Dude, that's awesome.
How could you deny that? Okay, so let me share my screen. Let's see if this works, guys. And bear with us if it's choppy.
Yeah, we'll try.
Well, yeah, this is a learning experience for all of us. So I'm going to do the whole StreamYard window. I don't think there's any issue with doing that. So whole StreamYard window. Whoa. So I think now you guys should be able to see the card. And so it's the Magician card, right? That's like the border. And then he has the Decans in the middle, right? Oh, and then he has Ara right there, which is kind of in between us. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then you're there, and I'm over here. Oh, and the cup lines up with my cup,
Exactly,
the chalice. Oh my
yes.
god, that's perfect. And then he's showing Ara right there. Nice, dude. Hell yeah. Hopefully you guys could see that. So
Is there a way we can tell if they can see it?
maybe just give us a thumbs up if you can see it. I bet they could too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's that's really cool, man. Dude, they're actually honestly the fact that the chalice lines up with my cup, dude. Chef's kiss, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is
Yeah.
great.
Totally.
Cool. It worked. Well, then at least we know that we can kind of do that sort of stuff. So then, if there are voicemails in here, I wonder, which there aren't right now, but I wonder if we'd be able to play them, but probably not.
I don't think
much.
I don't think it works that way.
Cool.
Yeah, which is okay.
Nice.
Yeah, totally.
Well, cool. Yeah. I mean, I know that we had the knot thing.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing of like knots holding energy. And so one of the practices I have when I'm wearing shoes that can be tied, I always untie my shoes now. And I do that because the lady I mentioned earlier, Freya Norling, she mentioned this, that like the knots hold whatever the time the knot was tied, it holds that energy. And then wherever that knot goes could also like be representative of the knot that was tied, right? And so she talked about how it's a really good practice to untie your shoes when you actually are done with a certain event, particularly if you've been in an event with like a lot of people, or it was a high energetic event or something like that. And so even if I haven't been at an event like that, I've always, ever since learning that, have made it an effort to untie my shoes, because I find that makes so much sense to me. And then I just think about how many times, even in my life, or how common is it that you just see people just push their shoes off without untying it. And then obviously you're probably going to untie your shoe when you go to put them back on, but almost just that symbolic kind of like release after that time where you're walking around or whatever.
Yeah, no, I could totally see that.
Because just like we talked about last time with putting something on your shoes or in your shoes, and you're charging that item.
Right, when you're walking.
So you're literally charging that knot every time you're walking. You could look at it symbolically like that.
Symbolically, it does. It makes it seem like you're in a rush and that you're not taking time, I don't know, maybe just to pay attention to the details and stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's just like, there's not enough time. I just have to
take my shoes off.
Take my shoes off, yeah.
And sometimes you do have to go fast or whatever, and it's not a big deal. But anyway, I'm just thinking out loud. But that's,
well, the other thing.
Oh, every time I see a knot now, I look at knots totally different now. Totally different. Instead of cutting a knot, I try and untie it if I can. Sometimes knots just are so pulled so tight that you can't.
Right.
But it's just something I notice about myself now. So,
no, totally.
Anyway.
I mean, the other thing I'm reminded of with the wind magic and the knots is the whole thing that it's sailors. By the way, didn't they actually literally have an example of one of these ropes in the museum?
I don't remember.
Or just like an
100%.
illustration?
They had an illustration on the outside of the museum. And that was one of the things that I remembered about the museum. It's above the door. It was an illustration. It just says, "Witches of Boz Castle selling the wind." And then some of the like items that you could buy in the store, they had postcards of it and stuff like that. I regret not buying one, but that's okay. It's neither here nor there.
Right.
It's in my heart.
It is, totally. But what I was going to say is just the whole idea that sailors, those guys are like freaking knot wizards.
Oh yeah, knots are like so important to
they're
them.
so important.
Yep.
And so anyway, so I just think that's interesting that they're going to be around knots and making knots, and it's like it's how they get around, you know, it's how they are able to survive and do what they do, you know, fish and everything else. And so the fact that they're also buying a knot, buying a rope with knots in it, I think is really interesting. And then it makes me wonder too. I wonder if they kept these knotted ropes as like a totem sort of kind of thing, you know, after the fact. So if they bought a knot, also, you know what? I would love to know how much they charged.
Yeah, me too, actually.
You know.
Yeah, I would love to know all these sorts of things, these little details, you know, that we can only meditate on and try and
we're just speculating,
find out. Yeah,
totally. So I mean, but I just wonder if they kept the knots around and everything else,
or if symbolically, you know, if it was like destroyed, or I know you brought up last night, or did they throw it into the ocean? You know, did they throw that third knot that they never untied into the ocean? And then what happened what happened when and if somebody did untie that third knot? I'd like to know.
Right.
You know, what did that look like?
Totally.
You know.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So Slick is saying here, sailors and Native Americans both used knot alphabets. That's really interesting, dude. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you've seen it. This is totally related. And actually, to be honest, the weaving thing or whatever, it's just symbolically, you can just go on and on and on with weaves and knots, right? This is really cool. This reminds me, though, that there is a Native American practice where you are creating scenes using like one piece of rope. You have one piece of rope, and it's almost kind of like, you know how there's some yo-yo tricks where you have the string and you're making like a little house or something.
Oh yeah, or like a cradle, or
you're making a cradle or whatever. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like that, where there's this kind of like lost art of like it's like a knot thing, and it's like a weaving sort of thing with your hands. I can't remember what they call it, but they're weaving this string with their hands, and they literally will show you one scene with your hands, and then they'll transition to another scene, and then they transition to another scene. But all of the transitions make sense for the storyline that they're telling you.
Oh, interesting.
It's really, really cool. It just reminds me of that. So Yeah, I think that's really, really interesting for sure. Not alphabets. I need to look that up.
Yeah, I want to know more about that for sure. Well, and knots do make me think of our buddy Pedro, because Pedro, he lives in his van a lot of times, but he, for a few years there, and still to this day, does a lot of camping. But he's a hammock guy, so he has hammocks, and that's actually how he sleeps in his van. And so he knows knots really well. And so I can remember the handful of times we've gone out camping with Pedro. He just has always had these crafty ways of tying up the hammock, and like things that to him is like probably very common and like not that big of a deal, but to like a person like me who wasn't familiar with certain knots, I'm like, oh dude, yeah, this is awesome. Or like he'd use a stick to hold the actual knot in place, and then as soon as you would take the stick out is when it could actually be taken apart.
Right.
There's just little tips like that where,
oh yeah,
and I
they
like
come in handy.
Oh yeah, and I like watching like the survival, people with survival channels or whatever, and they'll have all these knots that you can use
Right.
in different ways and stuff. So
Totally.
it's very cool. It's a cool art and magic, I'd say.
Going back to an earlier part of the conversation, Liam here says, I was literally just looking at the weather modification patents today. They go back at least 100 years.
Whoa.
But yeah, I believe ancients could do this using older methods. Yeah, totally. Maybe I wonder, I wonder if some of the towers from the ancient world and like the Antiquitech from the ancient world, if some of that is actually weather modification stuff.
Ooh.
Potentially.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing over here.
It could be. Yeah.
So, and then 8 Interlander from an earlier part of the conversation too, regarding the cloud seeding at Woodstock, just asked, is this revelation of the method? Yeah, perhaps for sure.
I don't know what that revelation of the method. What
just
is
like
that?
they want you to know what's going on. They want you to see it.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I think so.
They're not trying to hide it.
Right, and that even might be why they kept it in the film too. Of like, oh yeah, they found out, so here we'll show you, and we'll keep it in here so all the people that watch this later can see.
Right.
Hidden in plain sight sort of shit.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I could totally see that too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So anyways, so there's all of that. Earlier, by the way, I don't know if you missed it, Lucas said that the Tool drummer
Oh, okay.
is a drummer he likes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good one. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, right on.
So maybe, Lucas, there might be some bands I might send your way at some point with some pretty cool drummers. Get your opinion on that.
Yeah.
The older I get, for some reason, I just feel like I haven't had an appreciation for drumming, but the older I get, the more I'm really acknowledging how important and significant drummers are. And it's probably because I'm getting into more technical, kind of proggy, metal-ish type stuff. So
Could be.
in my earlier days, I was just listening to like caveman sort of like punk and metal and stuff like that. So the drumming was just fast. That's all they really cared about. They just had to be fast and obnoxious or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, there's some amazing drummers out there, obviously.
There was just an interesting interview that came out with Maynard that's on YouTube, and it was a pretty good one. Obviously, I know Maynard's not the drummer, but it was a good interview.
You follow him.
Yeah.
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 He's a person of interest for you.
He is.
Totally.
I love
There you go.
Perfect
Yeah.
Circle
So
and
Nicholas is
Pussifer.
saying Mastodon's drummer is amazing.
I was just thinking that, Nicholas. Yes, Bron Daler. I think that's Bron Daler or something. Oh my God, he is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
And his voice is amazing. That's so cool that you said Mastodon, because I was thinking of
She loves
Mastodons.
Mastodon.
I do. And yeah, I love Bron. He's great.
Yeah.
The whole band is awesome, but
they came up last time because Godzilla came up, but Gojira has an amazing drummer. And the drummer and the singer are actually brothers. The Duplantiers. So Mario is the drummer. He's a stud, man. He's really cool. I like him a lot. And then the freaking drummer from Meshuggah, I don't know if you're into them, but Thomas Hackey, he's incredible. And so he's a beast too. So I'm not sure if you're into Meshuggah or not. But yeah, if you're going to talk about metal drummers and stuff, that list kind of goes on and on and on.
Yeah, it's
because
kinda
they're
next
really
level.
doing some pretty crafty stuff
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, really good choices.
Yeah, Daler, that's his name. Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Lou. Yeah, he is a beast. And I love in their latest album, Hushed and Grim, I feel like is Braun's like his vocals are the best they've ever been on this album, in my opinion. He sounds amazing.
Totally. So yeah, Thomas Hockey. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but that's the drummer from Meshuggah. So yeah, I love those guys. They're fantastic. I would honestly, there's a short list of bands I want to see live. Meshuggah's one of them.
They just were on tour last year.
Right. And then Gojira is one of them too. And so I'm not even that much of a show person anymore. I used to go, in my like late teens, early 20s, I was going to a lot of concerts. And I just feel like, I don't know, once I moved to the Pacific Northwest, generally just stopped going pretty much.
Yeah.
But there's still a few bands that I want to check out at some point. For sure. Okay, nice. So I know this guy's name. That's good.
Nice. Right on. Oh God, we could do like a whole last Thursday of just music stuff. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, that would be a really good episode. I mean, I know we could go anywhere at all times on the show, but yeah, be good.
And then also too, I mean, if we wanted to link it to some of what we generally talk about,
Yeah.
there are so many things going on within the music industry that is subversive or seedy or manipulative or related to magic and, you know, all that kind of stuff as well. So
Yeah,
that can always be an angle
definitely.
if we wanted to.
Totally.
Yeah. So, was there anything else you wanted to bring up or talk about today?
Man, off the top of my head, I mean, we kind of got through like the meat of what we really wanted to talk about, definitely. So, yeah.
Well, you just did a thing with Kaylee.
I did, yeah. So Kaylee and I had a really good episode on the Healing Home on Tuesday. Talked about astrology, talked about like responsible ways to use it, irresponsible ways to use it, our personal takes on it. She's a great astrologer, so it was a really nice conversation with her and getting to see her just like becoming more studious with it is really cool. And so we talked about that and her studies and her current teacher that she's working with, and it was a really good one. So
Right.
yeah.
I really like the topic of using astrology appropriately
I do too. It's one of it is
and responsibly,
and it's something we talk about.
yeah, we talk about that
You
all the time.
know, behind the scenes or whatever you want to say, quite a bit. And we talk about that with divination in general, I feel like. And we also talk about that with life things too. But I feel like a lot of times we do come back to us observing how astrology specifically can be used irresponsibly to like conjure up fear in people and to get people fearful, to get people projecting into the future, to like wonder what's going to happen, wanting to know what's going to happen, you know.
Which I think wanting to know what's going to happen, that's just like a natural human
Oh, of course.
sort of like urge or desire.
Yes.
But I think the folly or potential fault with that is wishing, hoping X, Y, or Z is going to happen without actually putting any effort into maybe changing the situation yourself.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we hit on in the conversation too.
Right?
Of like talking, like, you know, the action that must be taken in order for things to change. You can do readings all day long, 500 readings. You can read 500 charts a day to try and get the answer, but it's usually based in some sort of action that needs to happen in order for something to change, you know? And so we talked quite a bit about that kind of stuff, which was good.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can always be looking ahead and you're always thinking about like, okay, so next week there's this alignment, which is favorable for whatever reason. Oh, next month, this is going to happen. Oh, around my birthday, this is going to happen, you know? And I think personally, I think astrology and I think tarot and I think a lot of things are best used when you're already doing that kind of work. I think it can kind of be like wind at your sails, but you're already sailing kind of thing. So I think it can kind of give you an extra boost, and I think that it can help even steer you maybe more in a favorable direction, I guess you can say. But it's like if you're just waiting for the alignments before you start doing something, to me, that's just one of those things where I don't know if that's necessarily what you want to do.
Right. And I don't know if it's necessarily how even the universe or nature wants it to be. I think that, as you said, the alignments will give you more wind in your sails or something like that. Or could, and we talked about this too, of like, there's something to be said about if you're wanting to have a certain event, right? Let's say a wedding or whatever, and you can plan it with these certain things in mind, with the cycle of the moon. That's why, there's a whole thing with gardening with the moon. That's a real legit thing that's been going on for eons, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, because there's more favorable times to plant roots for, or plant to do transplanting or to fertilize your garden or to cut your grass to discourage growth. Like, there are legitimate better times to do certain things. And so I think there's a thin line with it. And I think that it just requires balance, just like everything in life requiring balance. And so you can just take it to too much of a it can become a dependency, I think. I think that people can depend on these means of divination to tell them what they should do or what's going to happen instead of just creating their own reality.
You know what I think sometimes what it does? It totally reminds me of like the simulacra simulation stuff. Where I think, I'm not saying this for everybody, but I think there's certain people that do this. And I think that they're caught in a cycle, or they're caught in some sort of like, it's like a cul-de-sac sort of thing. Where and I've noticed this, I used to do this, so I'm saying this from personal experience, but you can see it when people are kind of on that trajectory, where there's people who want to give themselves the impression that they're doing something when they're actually not doing anything. So to me, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people buy those like really bogus like workout at home kits or whatever.
Right.
Where a lot of, I'm sure a lot of them are like helpful. It depends on what you're getting, I guess. I'm sure some of them are helpful, but I'm thinking of like, I don't know, you buy like 8-minute abs or something. Or
right.
You're buying, I don't know,
The
just
ab roller.
ab roller stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking any of these like specifically, but I think like the health and wellness industry knows that so many people literally, they're going to buy it because they just want to convince themselves that they're doing something, and so it's really easy to have future projections in your mind to be like, oh, well, on Monday, I'm going to start working out, or,
Right.
next month, I'm going to start that business, or I'm going to start, doing this or that, whenever's convenient for you. Once I am done with school, or, it's always about kicking the can down the road. And so if you really want to change your patterns, you have to change it like now, like
Yeah.
literally today. Today has to be the day that you change a pattern if you're really trying to change that pattern. So if you're really trying to get your health in order, don't wait till tomorrow.
Right.
Don't wait till Monday when the weekend's over. Don't wait until after your birthday, or you don't wait until the first of the year or anything like that. You have to do it now. You have to break the patterns now. And so I think a lot of people, they will get a reading, a natal chart reading, or they'll buy this product, some infomercial has whatever, and I think a lot of people, they satisfy their kind of yearning to change by purchasing something.
Yeah.
But purchasing something doesn't mean you're actually changing anything at all.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, I'm not saying everybody, once again, but I think there's certain people that get caught in that cycle, or they get caught in that loop, that buying things. And obviously, clearly, you have to buy things. Like, it's just one of these things, right?
Right.
No one here has never not bought something.
Right.
We've all purchased things. We all have to, but I think that you can kind of equate like buying a reading, or buying a psychic reading or whatever. you can convince yourself that you're actually doing some sort of work, or that you're actually like progressing toward your goals or something by getting this done.
Right.
And I just think that if you're already doing that kind of work already, and then you buy a reading or you get the insight from an astrologer who like knows what they're doing and what they're talking about and stuff, to me, then you're doing yourself that much better of a service, or you're doing yourself that much better of a thing, because now you're already facilitating the change. And I think that getting a reading done, having a little bit of insight from someone who is a gifted reader of some kind,
Yeah.
I think that can be totally magical and transformative and stuff. And I'm not saying people shouldn't get these things, but just kind of ask yourself, like, are you doing what you need to do already?
Right.
Or are you hoping that this reading is going to kickstart something for you?
Right.
I think some people kind of think that somehow that reading is going to give them the insight of maybe, oh, well, next month is going to be really prosperous for you. So just
wait.
So just don't do anything until next month or whatever.
Right.
Or that something good is just going to come to you next month. So I think a large part, some of it can be hopium, pretty much.
I think so too. I think so too. And I think, to the credit of like society in general, it's like that's how we're kind of we're programmed that way. And I think too, it's like we're programmed to think that I don't know, it's just the whole thing about the fortune teller in the dark alleyway that is gonna, like, a Tales from the Crypt sort of style thing and whatever. I think like that's kind of one of the stigmas that is put on to some of this divination stuff that can give it a bad name and can give it sort of this have people using it in more of the way that you're talking about more easily.
I thought of two movies with fortune tellers.
Okay.
The first one is The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah. In the wagon.
Do you remember when Dorothy gets the reading?
I do.
And do you remember he swindles her?
Yeah, I do.
And you remember he's the actual wizard?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so there's that. I think that's kind of interesting that they're literally showing her getting hoodwinked or whatever, and that he's not really psychic. But I think he took her.
He takes a photo.
Her basket or something.
Yeah, there's a photo of her or her grandma or something like that.
Yeah, and then he pretends to have these insights or whatever.
That her somebody's worried about you, or something like that, sort of thing.
And then the other thing it reminds me of is one of the Pee-wee movies when he gets a reading.
Oh,
do you remember that?
I'm not like I can't, not off the top of my head, not like a Wizard of Oz.
Same thing, basically.
Okay.
He goes to this psychic reader or whatever, and somehow she either gets his wallet or something like that.
Okay.
And she's able to kind of swindle him.
Right.
I guess, and pretend as though she's being psychic. I can't remember the details of that actual thing or whatever.
Right.
But it's just kind of interesting that that's sort of the deal.
Well, and it's interesting too, though, because I think stuff like that is actually maybe propaganda to discredit actual people who have the talent to be a channel or can use the tarot to be helpful and stuff like that. So like I said, there's like a thin line. I just think there's a thin line, and I think
everything is with discernment, honestly.
Everything.
It's so crazy.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's like seriously every single thing about life that's one of my biggest lessons, is that it all really usually does come down to discernment.
Right.
And so it just
what could be beneficial for you right now to do, or for me right now, or anyone who's watching this, what might be beneficial for them to do right now in this instant, in this moment, today, tomorrow, this week, whatever, may not be beneficial to them next week, next month, next year. That time may not be present.
Yeah.
That we're in a different time now. And so things that might be beneficial to you down the road may not be beneficial to you right now. So there's a time and place for everything. And so I do think that there's a time and place for readings. I think there's a time and place to get additional insights and all this other kind of stuff. But I feel like in large part it's in this sort of like field or industry, I think it probably gets abused quite a bit.
Definitely. I think so too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, some random thoughts about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the subjects we like to talk about a lot. So, because I think that it's definitely, it should be talked about more.
Hell yeah. Slick is peeing outside right now. Woo!
Nice.
Let it flow, dude. I like that. Nice. And feel free to and announce it every single time you're doing that and we happen to be on air. We'll definitely, I don't know, we'll cheer you on. That's awesome, dude. All right. Carl is back.
He's screaming out there.
Yeah, yeah. He wants to be part of the show.
He does. He likes you guys.
He does. All right. Well, what do you say? You want to land this plane? Do you have any additional thoughts or things you want to talk about?
No, I think this is a pretty good weave.
Yeah, I think so too.
And yeah, I don't know. One of the things I just wanted to say is to thank you for everybody who's been tuning in. This has been super fun. Thursdays are good days around here. Thursdays are my cleaning days, so it always feels like we're kind of starting the week off on the right foot with clean house and kind of coming down to the end of like the work week, and then we are having this nice stream that we've been doing. It's just been really fun. So thanks to everybody who's been super supportive and hanging out and commenting and wanting to contribute. It's been really nice. Like I feel like it's just been fun to engage with you guys in the chat more than on other shows, you know? So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love how casual it is. I like how we can kind of just go anywhere.
Me too.
And so I've been enjoying it for sure. So
yeah.
I appreciate you guys.
Yes.
Absolutely. So thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Honestly, I think we're pretty good with everything. I'm going live, like I said, tomorrow. So I have a slide for that right now that I'll show you guys. But yeah, a lot of my thoughts actually do center around the Emperor card and Aries.
Okay.
And things like that. So
you should save it for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll just save it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
For sure. But last night there was a good vibe ramp, I thought, on Chance's channel, Interverse. So Slick was there. I was there. Mark from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy was there. So that was a good show. I had a good time. And then next week we're doing the Astro Herbalism episode about Aries.
Yes.
And so you will be there. I'll be there. Slick will be there. Chance will obviously be there. And then Kyle as well.
Will also be there. So yeah, we're gearing
up. Kyle always brings it. You always bring it, I think. And so I don't know. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's a fun one. And then also next week on the Healing Home, Joshua the Branch is going to be on. So is Mario, and we're going to talk about plants in the Bible. And Joshua actually just sent me a list of all the plants that he's come across in the Bible, and it's a hefty list. It's interesting. I'm very, very excited about this one.
Oh, dude, and he's a really, really sharp guy.
Yeah.
Especially with biblical things. And so it's funny how it worked out, but Michelle's going to have Joshua the Branch on her show on Tuesday. I'll be there. And then we're going to go live, myself and Joshua, on Friday. And we're going to talk about some of the symbolism related to like Passover and things like that. So that's going to be interesting. So it just kind of all happened to work out that way. You were in contact with Joshua. He was in contact with me. And so we just settled on next week is Joshua the Branch week.
Yeah,
so
nice.
That's the deal.
And it was totally his, Joshua's idea to do the biblical plants. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. I'm very stoked.
Totally. Yeah. Right on. Okay. So, Nicholas wants us to check out Dave Lombardo's new drum album.
Okay.
Nice.
Cool.
We can do that.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, let me get this credit thing going here. Okay. Alice asks real quick, would love to know what is in the frame hanging on your wall. Okay. So right there. Yeah. So that is actually my Gemini print. So I've done a few illustrations based on the signs of astrology, and I actually have all 12 signs illustrated, but I've only printed 3 of them. Only 3 of them have been like finalized and printed. So that's my Gemini. So that's the last one I've actually printed. And so during Gemini season, I'll definitely share that one. And I think last Thursday, I'm gonna show you guys my Aries print, and there's some things regarding that print that I just want to get off my chest and everything. So during each sign, I will share with you guys the artwork that I've created for that sign,
Yeah,
basically.
you should.
Whether it's finalized or it's just like a sketch or whatever, because I did that once already for Pisces.
Yeah, and that was a nice one. I think it's a good practice for you to do that.
Totally, totally. Thanks, Alice. I could show you real quick, actually. I'll get it and show you. So Slick is saying we have so much fun with Astro Herbs. My face always hurts from smiling all night. I believe that, dude.
It is a good time. I feel like we mesh really well together as a crew, and I'm always inspired by each Astro Herbalism episode in so many ways. So, and I feel honored to be a part of it. There she is. This is my favorite of Mario's. Honestly, I love this print so much. I want to wear it on a shirt.
Yeah, so this is my Gemini print. Hopefully it's coming through at least somewhat sharp for you guys. Yeah. And so here you see the two Gemini twins. They're very mercurial, and one of them is like a dark twin, the other one is a light twin. And you see that central pole right there in the middle. This is emblematic of the world axis. And you see that there's lots of egg shapes too. And this kind of goes back to the idea that the Gemini twins were born from a cosmic egg. And so you can even see the egg-like appearance of their helmet as well. And they each have a pouch because Mercury is the messenger of the gods. You see twin pillar symbolism right there. That's what their hands are resting on. And that's because, you just look at the Gemini glyph and you're talking about twin pillar symbolism. And then the two stars up top, that represents the two main stars of Gemini, Castor and Pollux. And so anyway, yeah, there's a lot going on here. But also notice too that they're kind of, they're both breathing into kind of this central sort of design. And so Gemini corresponds with the breath and communication and things like that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things going on in each of my prints. And so if anyone's interested, I have all of these prints on my Etsy, or you can just shoot me a message and, you can just order one through me directly if you want to. But they all come signed. And anyway, yeah, this is the last one I printed.
And they're a limited run.
Yeah, they're basically a limited run, pretty much. So they're also both standing on bricks. There's like a very potent brick weave with Gemini that I think is kind of little understood or little known. The Babylonians referred to the time of Gemini as the brick mold. And so when you're dealing with masonry, like Freemasonry, you're dealing with brick symbolism. And Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, this is where you get Rome from Romulus. They're credited for building the first brick wall in Rome. And so anyway, there's a lot of brick symbolism with Gemini. So I had to include at least some sort of nod to that for sure. But yeah, thanks for asking. And hopefully, I think at some point I'll print all of them. But I just know it's going to be, it's going to be a long-term sort of project.
Right. And one of the things I love about that too is if you guys didn't see, it's like one of them is kind of like the devil side, and then the other one is more of the angelic. What's up, Ben?
Hey, Ben. Nice to see you, man.
Good to see you.
As always.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were actually just going to sign off.
Oh, and Ben, I saw that you had Alana Freeland on.
Oh, yeah. We spent time with Alana.
Yeah, we did a couple years ago.
Yeah, so Alana, she spoke in Portland, and we were tasked to basically, we drove her around a little bit.
Yeah.
And so she is such
We shipped her books off, too, for her. Do you remember she left us a big box of books?
Oh, yeah, yeah, right, totally.
Yeah, because she doesn't drive, I don't think, or something like that. She was on the train or whatever. So
yeah.
It's cool you had her on. I haven't had a chance to listen yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
She's a really sweet person.
Yeah, I loved talking to her.
Yeah, and so we had several really good conversations with her.
Yeah.
And we took her to a bookstore, and like we kind of had like an afternoon with her, basically, just us three.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So she's awesome, man. I'm not sure if you guys have met before online or anything like that, but that's totally rad. I definitely support her for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. So Slick is saying bricks, embrace, breath, brass bros, as in brothers. Yeah, totally. So the brick thing, man, I love that weave with Gemini. I think it's so interesting. Nice. Cool. Thank you guys so much. Awesome. Yeah, so he was saying she was super cool. I need to catch up with that one. Interesting history too. Like her own personal history, which I don't know what she's ever said online, but her personal history is kind of fascinating. She's seen some things, and she's just she's had some interesting experiences, I guess.
Yeah, she has.
You know.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay, cool. That was the first time that they had gotten together.
Okay, cool. Right on.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. Sweet. Well, excellent, guys. Thank you so much. We have some slides, like usual, to get to here at the end, some end credits, if you will. Let's use this setup here, and we will take that off. So, yeah, here we are. Another last Thursday.
On the last Thursday of the month.
Yes, that's right.
So last Thursday, every Thursday. Cheers.
Cheers, yeah.
Last Thursday, every Thursday. Thanks again for joining, you guys. This has been super fun to allow us to just kind of like have conversations, include you in conversations that we usually have together in our living room.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's kind of like we want to just, the topics that we find ourselves talking about, all the time together. It's just fun to be able to do it online and then get some more opinions and get to know people in the chat a little bit better. So
yeah, totally.
Super cool.
So as Michelle was saying, next week she's gonna have Josh with a Branch on Tuesday, talking about the herbs or plants of the Bible.
Yep.
That is such a cool topic. I really like that one.
Yeah. Again, shout out to Joshua. He reached out to me and posed the idea. And I would not have thought about it otherwise.
No.
So, freaking shout out to Joshua the Branch for, giving me the idea and being willing to conjure up some thoughts about it. And so, me, him, and Mario will go at it next week on the 4th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Healing Home.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool.
And as always, patreon.com/thehealinghome. If you feel like throwing some support our way, be very much appreciated. All patrons get my full moon offering announced to them a couple days before everybody else who is subscribed. So it'll give you an opportunity that if you want to get your hands on something before everybody else, you can do it through Patreon and you'll be able to be put on a wait list and then you can secure a product. Because, as I've said so many times, I make really small batches. So sometimes things sell out really quickly. And if you want to make sure you can get something, being a patron would be a really good way to do that.
Yeah, totally.
And my menu is up on the screen for anyone who's interested in grabbing something from me. The CBD whip body butter is a fresh batch. I just made it last week. I only have 2 left. So you can get your hands on that. The scent is orange cedarwood. Really good stuff. We're blasting through our jar that I rationed for us. So
we both really love it.
Yeah. So I'll be making more very soon because it goes fast around here. And
I would say it's becoming one of your staple favorites of mine for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And probably for other people too.
Yeah,
so.
It's a good one. And it's a newer product of mine too. So it's pretty cool to see that people just really liking it. It is inspired by my friend Vanessa, who runs an Ashiatsu massage therapy practice, and she asked me to formulate something for her with CBD, and she wanted me to make something like with a lot of shea butter, because shea butter is really when you're giving massage, it can pull it, like kind of pulls the skin. It gives you a really,
it's like a little tacky.
It's kind of tacky. So she wanted something that kind of has a pull on the skin.
In the best of ways, though.
In the best of ways.
Yeah.
And she's used it on me during massage, and you can just feel the difference. So it works really well in that respect. So pretty cool with all that. So
totally.
And michelleshealinghome@gmail.com for questions, comments, scheduling consultations, purchasing products, all of those things. I do that all directly. So I do not have an online store. You won't be able to go through my website and like click a button and purchase something. You'll have to talk to me. So you can email me that way, michelleshealinghome.com for my website, and text me 503-568 1569 if that is more comfortable for you. Snail mail, P.O. Box 930, Carson, Washington 98610. If you feel like sending us something, that's
Right.
fun too.
Totally. And then symbolicstudies.com is how you guys can find me. Sweet. Yeah, Ben's saying, oh, hey, I needed to chat with Mario about computer art. Dude, yeah, hell yeah, man, anytime.
Yes.
If you ever want to talk, dude, I'll send you my number. If you ever want to text or talk or whatever, you can hit me up that way. Or you can email me or through Facebook or whatever. But I'd be happy to talk to you, dude, for sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Nicholas. Nicholas is saying, I'm a huge fan. Amazing products, Michelle. Cheers.
Aw, thanks, Nick.
That's very sweet.
Yeah, we really appreciate your support. I love sharing my stuff with people. I really do. And so it's one of my greatest passions is making things and sharing stuff and creating. So
Right.
I'm very grateful for everybody who reaches out and supports. It means a lot, really does.
Definitely.
And it keeps me going. My creative juices flow so much when I'm making stuff.
Oh, you are a physical creator.
It is. Very much so.
Yeah.
My everything just flows so much when I'm making stuff.
Yeah. So cool, man. Yeah, Ben, I'll shoot you my number for sure. And since he brought it up, I've been making it known that I, have been a graphic designer for years. So if people are in need of design work of any kind, I've done basically everything you can imagine. So it ranges, and I've done things for big companies, small companies, everything in between. So I know people out there have their projects and whatever. So if I could be of any assistance, just let me know, and we can chat about it 100%. And as I said earlier, I'm going to do a stream on the Emperor card tomorrow. And so I created this artwork for the thumbnail because one of the reasons why I love the Rider-Waite version of the artwork is because it's basically showing you that the Emperor, he is the central mountain. And so that's what this artwork is implying. And so I extended the mountains. I created the mountains to show you, what it would look like if it weren't confined within the card canvas size. And so he is the central mountain. So I think that there are things relating him to Mount Meru, as an example, the symbolic mountain in the center of the plane and everything else. And so what I'm doing, in case people didn't hear me earlier, I literally scanned every single Emperor card in my tarot deck collection. They're in order from the oldest cards going back to the 15th century to the newest cards. And I'm going to go from oldest to newest. And I'm just going to be riffing on each card and talking about the symbolism that I see, how it relates to Aries, and things like that. So it's definitely going to be a good time. So I'm looking forward to that. So tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific.
This is the first time I'm seeing the graphic complete, and it came out really nice.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, because you only showed me, just the beginning stages. But yeah, this looks really great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice work.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I love that font. That's great.
Yeah, totally. So, so that's what we got, guys.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, until next time, you guys have a good weekend. And, unless I see you tomorrow during my stream, but have a good weekend regardless, people.
Yeah. Thank you guys for hanging out. Much love to y'all.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.